Okay, so we are actually now moving to the kind of second part of the course. The course which we are offering here is titled as Indian Philosophy and Ethics. So the Indian philosophy part is done and we are now moving over to ethics. And we will have exactly 3 sessions on it. So I'm planning just 3 parts to it. So obviously it will be this Tuesday, next Tuesday and next to next Tuesday. And then we'll be done with the course. Meanwhile, you have 2 more homework. One homework you have to submit today. And there will be another homework that will come based on this, which you will submit to me on next to next Tuesday. And then the last Tuesday of this month will be the end semester exam in class itself. Right? So that will be on 29 November, I think. Right? So that day will be end sem exam. And then we are done with the course. Okay, great. So let's begin with this particular theme. 4 kind of subtopics of what I'm going to do. One is an introduction, which we'll begin with. And then we're going to see something on how to handle conflicts. And then view of the world from ethics perspective. And then something from Chanakya, on ethics. So this much is what we're going to do today. Okay, great. So let's start with the introduction. So the first thing is, let's try to look up at some definition of ethics. Would anyone like to volunteer with some definition of ethics? What do you believe? How would you define ethics? I mean, I don't want you to Google and find out. Just tell me, what do you think is, how is ethics basically defined? Anyone? Yes.
The difference between right and wrong, doing what's right, ethics.
Okay, that means ethics is to understand the difference between what is right and what is wrong. Okay, so that's why we will put it in quotes, right and wrong. Okay, good. Anybody else has anything else to say?
A personal set of rules that we decide for ourselves upon which we live our life.
Very good. That's also good. So that means one decides for himself, these are my ethics in life and I will live by that. Something like that. So, of course, so both these definitions certainly assume that ethics are a bit relative. So somebody may say, these are my set of ethics, which could be problematic from another person's perspective. Is that okay? Okay, good. Anything else about ethics? Anybody else would like to offer any definition? Anything about ethics? Would like to say something? Any synonym for ethics? What is another word that people use instead of ethics? Manners? Morality. Okay, morality is actually close. Morality and ethics do go close together. Character. Okay, yes, character is also on the similar lines. Okay, good. So I start with this definition. I'm sorry, the red color perhaps was not a good choice, but anyway. Moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. This is a dictionary definition of ethics. Okay, basically moral principles that govern someone's behavior. As she said, we decide to live by certain principles and that's what is actually called as ethics. Okay, now the second point. Legality versus ethics. So we all know that at least the way the definition looks like, ethics seems something more subjective. That means somebody decides a set of ethics for himself or herself. And then there are ethics in society as well, which people decide together that, okay, this is at least expected. Or it's not expected that somebody behaves some way. Now there is legality. When we say legality, we are talking about the state, right? So there are governments who impose laws. So legality we know is binding on all. So government has made a rule. Now you will observe that, so I just want to ask you a question. How much do you think a state or a government or the legal framework should interfere in ethical and moral behavior? Any thoughts on that? I am asking a very pointed question. how much do you think the state or the legal framework should interfere in ethical and moral values and everything of society? Any thought? Should they interfere or they don't? Or like, what do you feel like? Do governments interfere, first of all? Across the world, do governments interfere? Yes, they do, right? In every place in the world. So basically, I just want to take three worlds, so to speak. The European world, the Arab world, a country like India. So, the European world and the Arab world sometimes may look like extremes on this behavior. Like for example, in most European states or even in America, in several states in America, just to give an example, homosexuality is legalized. Right? That's considered okay. Now, whereas in some worlds, it's considered punishable offense. And India is somewhere in the middle, basically. So that's why I've just put Europe, Arab, and India, because India has its laws like 377 that goes against it, but at the same time, not much action is taken about it. You know, so there are some rules in our country where there are there. Or just to take another example, like use of drugs or alcohol. Now, if you see again here, this is. Do you agree with me that this is something which is in one's personal domain? Generally, by and large, right? Someone wishes to drink or use some substance. It's in his personal domain. And it comes certainly under ethics and moral behavior, where there is certain expectation in society, how a person should live, etc. But again, if you see in the European world, nowadays in the European world, nothing is banned actually. Everything is allowed. You can actually buy everything very legally. That's fine. If you go to Arab world or or even some Southeast Asian countries like Malaysia or somewhere, and you have some drug substance with you and you're caught, that's it. You could get death penalty or you could be imprisoned for life. You understand the point, right? So in some countries it's very severely looked against at. So one is not allowed to use these things at all. Whereas again, India stands somewhere in the middle. So we have in India, for example, some states that have banned liquor. You know that? Like you have Kerala, you have Gujarat, you have Bihar. They have banned the sale of liquor, at least officially. You get everything in India, but still, they banned it, right? They say that officially it's not allowed or whatever, right? So this challenge is always there between legality and ethics. How much should the state interfere in ethics and moral values? I hope you try to understand one thing, that legality is certainly the business of government. So legality as in, right? Any criminal offense, any offense where someone troubles another person. Like for example, I steal from someone, murder someone, do something against somebody, and I cannot say that this is my ethics, my personal ethics, this is how I behave, this is how my father, grandfather, everyone has, done their business in life. So that's not allowed, right? So government certainly comes in, and that's considered fine. But if you talk about a personal space of an individual, where he or she may not do anything against anyone, but still he wishes to do something, this is where the question comes whether the state should interfere in that or not. Are you all understanding what I'm talking? Yeah? So there are all these areas where if the state interferes too much, then like for example in the Arab world, if you go to Saudi Arabia or some such country, things are pretty severe out there. So, right, you cannot, all the ethical, whatever rules they have in their system, everyone has to follow it. Okay, so for example, every woman should be in parda, because from their perspective, woman has to be covered. So, whether you're a Muslim or whatever, you've got to be in parda. Because that's their ethics which they've imposed on the people. Are you getting it? Yeah, makes sense? So several countries around the world are like that as well, where they have imposed all their ethics in their legal framework. So now my question to all of you is, should the state interfere in ethics or should it not? What's the general opinion? You have to give both ways. See, please remember, there are reasons why states interfere also. Like for example, if you see, why is it that many Indian states, for example, win elections by promising banning alcohol? Like for example, in Bihar, If you remember, Nitish Kumar had promised in 2015 election that he will ban liquor if elected. And he got a lot of support for that. So that means apparently people also like to support decisions where the state interferes in the personal life of people. So that's why my question is, should the state interfere in the personal, ethical space, moral values of society? Or should they not? Like for example, homosexuality, another example. Okay. Should they continue to ban it, or should they be like America and the Europe world? So what is the thought here? I mean, I don't want you to take each of these examples and tell me. I want you to tell me in principle, what do you think? Should states interfere in ethical and moral values, or should they just refrain and just take care of the legal business? And why? Yeah. Anyone with a raise of hand? Okay. Yeah.
Sir, legality should interfere in this ethical manner, according to me.
Achha, you feel that state should interfere?
Interfere because.
Okay, please remember, just 1 second. There are two extremes we have here. Sorry to interrupt you. There's the European world, which I told you, where by and large nothing is banned and everything is fine, right? And I'm just taking as an example. You have the Arab world. You know this, right? So here, most of these things are, at least officially, all of these are crimes actually. Homosexuality is a crime, drinking is a crime, drugs are a crime, everything is a crime. Anything you do of that sort, you could get capital punishment. Or anything you could get actually. We finished. But in Europe, there's nothing like that. You could do anything and that's okay. So these are like two extremes. India is somewhere in the middle actually, at least at this point. You know, certain things we allow, some we don't. We're not strict on some things. Yeah, so you're favoring more interference in ethics.
Not more, but little. Because
you don't want as much. You don't want as much as the Arab world, right?
Yeah, because the thinking of different people is different. So one.
Yeah, understood.
One government should apply most in moral value.
Okay, he's saying he should. Anybody else has any other view here? All agree with him? Yeah.
So I think they shouldn't, because it is a person's personal approach, what they want to do and they don't want to do in their life. And when someone wants to do something, like if someone wants to take drugs, he is going to take drugs even if it is banned. He's going to find out a way in which he'll do that crime. So it's not.
No, I'll just tell you what they feel. Like I'll take an example of Bihar and tell you. So for example, it is noted especially in rural areas that men, especially of the lower class, you know, poor people, laborers, etc., who are addicted to alcohol, they drink a lot, they beat up their wives and their kids. They spend all the money on drinks. Okay? So if you notice, at least in India I'm saying, whenever a party says that we will ban alcohol if we come to power, most of the women folk vote for them. Because they know that their husbands and brothers and all what they're doing at home. And they support. And they get a lot of votes. So I'm just saying that people support such stands.
So, but anyways, even if they ban alcohol, it is going to be available somewhere and they are going to find it.
Yeah, just that it makes it a little difficult to get. Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, okay, good. I agree with your point. Okay, great. Go ahead. Someone else. Yeah, you want to say something?
I think that the state should interfere with ethics only up to maintaining peace and stopping people from actually committing crimes. Like stoning of women, that is something more, that is something that is...
Yeah, understood. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of what you're saying. Like for example, if you go to Saudi, if a woman has to come to the court, let us say a woman has been raped, and she has to come to the court and say, she has to have a male as a witness who will say that yes, because a woman witness is not accepted. So that's like their ethics, the way they view women, that's part of the legality framework. Where a woman, even for such a thing, needs a male witness, which is very surprising. Anyway, go ahead.
And also not to an extent where there was in between, in France, burqa was banned. And it caused a lot of
yeah, I know that. Yeah. So what? It should be banned, or I mean,
no, like that is the perspective.
Personal space.
Yeah, that is personal space. You should not interfere in the way a person dresses. But when it comes to liquor and drugs, which are definitely harmful, you can at least establish limits up to which things can be done.
Yeah. Anyway, she raised a very interesting example. You know, the burqa ban in France, it was something like this, where One thing is Saudi Arabia where burqa is mandatory. That's enforcing legality, ethics on people, their ethics, whatever they feel. But France took an approach saying that nobody can wear it. Where if some woman even wants to wear, then she said, no, you cannot wear this. You may wear a bikini if you wish to. That's fine. But you can't wear a burqa. So that's like an opposite. Perhaps that's some kind of a backlash to, extreme enforcement of ethics. Okay, anyway, good point. Yeah, okay, good. Thanks for that. Yeah, behind there.
I think we can't do a particular decision about that. We cannot take an extreme decision about, because
so you're comfortable with the European model as well, where everything is okay.
Yeah.
Where you can do actually everything.
No, it depends on society what it respond, how it respond about that decision. Because Arab countries wants to that restrictions about women and everything, but France they don't allow. So it depends on the society.
But if a woman wants to cover herself, still
not
the French
everyone,
government
but
had a
majority
problem.
of the women want. So that's why the decision is still there.
Pending, yeah.
So
Okay.
it depends on the society.
Currently it is still there or no? I
Yes,
forgot.
yes, there it is.
What, burqa is banned in France?
I'm
not sure.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I just read, there was a controversy. Okay, see, thing is, there are challenges either way. Note that. It's not very easy. So, for example, certainly this world seems a little bit too strong for us to accept in terms of so much of enforcement of ethics. All of you will agree that India is neither here nor here, right? Everyone agrees with that? We are neither so stringent, neither we are so liberal also. Please remember that this liberality is also challenging. It's not very easy. For example, so there what happens is everything is left to the individual. So for example, just like since you all are students, I'll give you an example. Like in the US, something that's pretty popular among students is a concept called sugar daddy. Okay, I'll just explain what this is in case you don't know. So basically, unlike India, where most of the kids come to college who are being funded by the parents or by the government or something, in the US, most kids after 18, when they go to college, they have to fund their own education. Their parents are not going to give them money. Their parents will, they have a different cultural setup itself. So most kids in the US, you will see that they take student loans and come. So there is a very interesting, there are several websites and it's a very interesting concept in the US called sugar daddy, where there are rich men, elderly men, who are ready to fund education of girls, but with some interests, So such a daddy is called as a sugar daddy. So it's a daddy who funds the woman's education, only woman, but he wants some favors in return, which I need not elaborate. So these are very popular, please remember, in the US. Several websites that advertise it, and there are all these, sites that advertise, okay, sugar daddy available, this is what he expects, and it's all considered fine because in that world, everything is okay. It's not the Arab world. Okay, so now an 18-year-old girl who has just stepped out of, home and who is now having to make her life, she has to rely on such a setup. Vis-a-vis in the Arab world, such a thing would be outrageous actually. It would be too difficult for them to conceive because it's the father's job to pay the money for the daughter's education. It's as simple as that, which is pretty much the case in India as well, considering the traditional setup that we still have in some ways, right? So please remember, even this world comes with its own set of challenges. This, this liberal world where everything is allowed. Are you getting my point? Yeah, makes sense? Yeah. So I think by now at least this much I have motivated everyone. So I just want to ask you, with a raise of hand, 3 options just to understand where everyone is. So there is a European world on this side, and you know what this side represents, which I explained now. There is the Arab world on this side, and India is somewhere in the middle, even now. So how many of you feel that where we are is fine? Just raise your hand. How many of you feel where we are is fine? Somewhere between these two words. Okay, great. How many of you feel we need to move to this end of liberalization? Don't worry, you can raise your hand, that's fine. It's your individual opinion. I'm okay with it. Okay, good. I'm just trying to see where people are. Okay. How many of you feel India should move to this end of the spectrum? Okay, that's kind of it. it's fine. Why not? It's an individual opinion. I mean, if you say that nobody should say that, then that's again like the French government saying that burqa is banned. You know why? Come on. Someone feels that, no, we should be more strict. Nothing should be allowed. Great. I mean, that's an opinion. In democracy, everything is permissible. You can have your opinion. That's fine. Okay. So it does look, at least from a democratic perspective, most people are happy with, where our country is. Somewhere trying to, manage everything through. You want to say something here since you had another view. Mansingh, where's the mic here? Yeah. Go ahead.
We need to be a little more liberal considering all the religions that live in India. It's not just Hindus. Like there's a beef ban. So there are people who have, like they have to have beef for like their religious activities and stuff. But it's banned and then people are dying because of it. Like,
okay.
So there was a case where there was a man and he was killed because he was
Dadri.
purchasing.
Yeah, Dadri. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. But anyway, one thing I wish to say over here that, just for your background, which again many people need to understand, as such, the killing of cows which is there, this has been banned in India not recently. This is there since 1950s, by the way. It's there since a very long time. In India, you know what happens? There are many laws, but some laws are not enforced very strongly. So some governments tend to enforce some law, but the law is there. Okay, and by the way, there is a reason for it as well. It's mainly from the perspective of protection of cattle species. Because please remember that in India, even today, cow milk or even buffalo milk for that matter forms a big source of protein and everything for people. And there are several Indian breeds of cattle which are, on the verge of extinction. You will not believe this because as in nobody is really maintaining them carefully, those particular species, of indigenous cows. Which are most well suited to the Indian environment, etc. So there are many reasons actually why that ban was there, and it's not as simple as one may see that. Anyway, I'll not go more into that right now. Okay, good.
I just want to say that yes, like cattle production, as in production via cattle, is predominant in India as well as China.
Yeah.
And India has a lot more cattle population, and yet China does much better in cattle production, as in production of cattle goods. Like milk and stuff, dairy products. So yeah, maintenance and management of cattle breed is important. That's
okay. Okay, good. Okay, so now we will, with this basic introduction, I wish to start with whatever I wish to say over here. So basically, we discussed this particular point just now, the role of state in ethics. So as far as this presentation is concerned, I am mainly focusing on Indian epics, what they have to say about ethical values. You'll be very surprised to see that their perspective is that ethics has to be mainly managed by society and not so much by state. Believe it or no. That's the Indian ethic perspective. So that's why, for example, if you read the Mahabharata or if you read any of these books, you will see that, there was prostitution, there was people who were drinking, all these kinds of people were there in society. It's not that when in the Mahabharata times or the way it describes all these things were banned. It's not like that. They were all there in society. Okay. But the point is, so is ethics important or no in general? Of course they view ethics as important. But they view society as the most important factor, samaj, that means education, as the most important factor to encourage people to follow ethics and not from the state. You understand the difference? One is state governed ethics and one is social governed ethics, whereas society encourages people to follow ethics. That's the model that is primarily suggested here, where the state just does the legality. Education, not only ethics, even education was the business of society itself, with minimum government interference. It was the British who introduced a system of government interference in education. But otherwise, education is left to the society to decide in general, without government interference or certifications. You get this point? So that's how the Indian epics see it. It's at least from some perspective, it looks more closer to the European world. but it is still different because in the European world there is no, as an encouragement of ethics really being, taught to people, etc. So that's again out. Correct? So that's how it is different. But again, it is different from the Arab world, as in, it's not that if anybody does something, he's hanged. No. He's allowed his own space if he wishes to live life that way. So that's how the Indian epics view ethics in general. So now we will start with whatever I want to say in this. So in ethics, there are several things that we could discuss. There is something called professional ethics. Like you join any organization, there are some ethics in that organization. Right? So I'm not really talking too much from professional perspective, though that's also important, where in the professional world, to be ethical in whatever conditions are being laid down by the workplace that we work in. But really we are focusing on the personal space. That's what we're doing. And in my 3 parts of 3 seminars that I'm speaking on ethics, to speak on 3 domains: the personal domain, the interpersonal relationship domain, and the leadership domain. That means, as individuals in our relationships, not official relationships, personal relationships. So we are restricting our entire discussion of ethics in the personal, family, society front, and not so much front of and things like that. Okay, great. So the first thing I would like to start with is with a topic called as handling conflicts. Because please try to understand, if someone wishes to practice ethics in his life. So now please remember, so first of all, from my perspective of ethics, the way I am defining it, it's mainly in the personal front. Okay, so these ethics that we are going to talk about or discuss over here, these are not legal things which the government says you must follow. Because the government says something you must follow, then you have no choice only, right? You have to follow that, whether you like it or no. But on a personal space, still one makes his own decisions. So I'm talking about that space. Okay, and what I wish to say is, if someone wishes to really live by some ethics, then immediately there are conflicts in life. I hope you can understand why. Because when you want to live by certain principles, at some point you have to sacrifice something. You understand what I'm saying? You have to let go of something in order to maintain your ethics. So because of that, there are conflicts. So I'm going to raise, in my first part of today's presentation, a list of conflicts that a person who wishes to practice ethics may encounter in his life. And then we will discuss how to handle them. Okay? So there are 5 or 6 kind of conflicts I have put up, and we'll detail all of them. The first one I call it as idealism or practicality. That means a person who wishes to follow ethics, his own set of ethics in life, he has to decide how much should he stick on to idealism. You understand what is idealism? That means ideally wanting to do something. But then what conflicts ideality? Practical situations. So there are certain practical situations that demand or that force you into a situation where your so-called idealism, ethics cannot be followed. Then what are you going to do? Then do you see the conflict between idealism and practicality? So like this, I have just put up some conflicting scenarios. So one by one we will elaborate. So I'll not really define all of them. So we'll start right away with the first one called idealism or practicality. Okay, so I have some examples. So basically what I am going to do throughout my today's presentation is use examples from epics, the Indian epics, basically the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, as well as I am going to take, as I have always been doing, several modern examples to try to talk of how would you see idealism and practicality. So in fact, I may, so I'll start something with the Mahabharata first, then I'll come to these examples that I put up over here. So in the Mahabharata, on the last day of the war, there is the fight between Bhima and Duryodhan. Okay, so Bhima and Duryodhan come together for the last match of the war. And they basically have what is called as a mace fight. So the fight is with the mace. And there are some ethics in mace fighting. And the primary ethic is, or the rule of the game is, you can't hit below the belt. That's the ethic in a mace fight. So the mace is supposed to hit only parts above the belt, not below. So that's the rule in a mace fight. However, it so happens that as the fight progresses and it goes on for some time, Krishna and so basically Bhima and Duryodhana are fighting. Everyone else is just a spectator. Okay, so Krishna, he and Arjun, they all understand very quickly that Bhima is not going to win. Bhima is not going to win this game easily. The reason is that what had happened was, as you know, 13 years, these people were in the forest. And in the forest, obviously, you don't exercise, or you don't have a gym to ensure that you have a very good physique. Whereas Duryodhana, on the other hand, he was in his palace and daily he was fighting. In fact, the story is that he had made an iron statue of Bhim, and with the mace, he was daily banging that left and right, to flex his muscles and really, pump his energy. So he had practiced a lot. So in practice, Duryodhana was better. In skill also, Duryodhana was better because he had learnt the art of mace fighting very nicely. So Bhima was weak in that. Bhima's only strength was raw power. In raw power, he was supposed to be superior to Duryodhana. But as you know, in a game, skill, practice, these things again become very important. And moreover, what had happened was, a couple of days before this fight, Gandhari, the mother of Duryodhana, had in some ways, benedicted Duryodhana's, especially the upper part of the body, where he had really become exceedingly powerful. So because of that, the game was tilted in Duryodhana's favor. So after the fight progressed for some time, Krishna tells Arjun, tell Bhima to hit here, signal the thigh. So Arjun tells Krishna that, hey, this is not allowed, the ethics of mace fighting does not allow us to hit below the belt. You understood? So it's a challenge between idealism and practicality. So ideally you don't want to do that. Krishna says, well, if you don't want to tell him, then let the game continue and you will see what happens. So basically after a long time, again Arjun is wondering what's happening now, what will happen. So again Krishna reminds him, this is the only solution. So then he tells him, he shows again. So finally Arjun taps his thigh in presence of Bhima. And Bhima gets the clue. And he knocks Duryodhana's thighs. He fractures the bone here. And Duryodhana falls dead. And as he's falling, all the spectators who are there, everyone else, including Balaram and so many others who are witnessing the fight, they say, this is cheating. This is cheating because you've broken the rules. The rule of this game is you can't hit below the belt. So how did you do that? So Balaram and everyone come and say that, now come on, you have to fight with me right now because you broke the rule. Because both of them were his students. So they say, how could you break the rule? I taught you the rules of the game. Okay. So at that time, basically Krishna interferes again and he tells Balaram that, you see, there are several things to be understood over here. This is not just some, match that is there which we have all come to witness and have some fun as to, who will win. This whole thing is about, so Krishna had a completely different view of that particular match. You understood? He was not looking at it just from the perspective of whether the rules have to be followed or no. He was looking at it from the perspective of dharma and adharma. That is, those who have done certain things in life, are they getting the reaction for that or no? Okay, so if you just go back into the story is that when Duryodhana had unfairly cheated Yudhishthira in the gambling match and had got Draupadi into the arena, the first thing he did is to show his thigh to her in public and say that, you are anyway lost, come and sit on my thigh right now. So at that time, Bhima, even though he is lost, he kind of, out of anger, he makes a vow over there that since you showed that thigh to her like this in public, like a shameless fellow, I am going to break that thigh one day. And that was well accepted, that yes, what Duryodhana did was wrong. And everyone said that you can't do this to a woman like this. And then of course, but Duryodhana continued, he didn't care. Okay, so there were several things in the background which Krishna had in his mind as to why Duryodhana has to be punished in a particular way. Are you getting it? So it was a classic fight between idealism and practicality, where in general the Pandavas wished to follow the ethics of fight. But the whole question was whether right now those ethics are to be obeyed or no. Are you getting it? Yeah. So this conflict, please remember, exists even today. So just like, I don't know, 1 week ago there were 8 SIMI, the Students Islamic Movement of India, terrorists who had escaped from Bhopal jail. They had killed on Diwali day actually, they had killed the security guard and ran out. And the police chased them and some fight happened and they were shot down. Okay, so there is this whole debate that went on later on television channels and everything, in case you notice that, whether they should have been killed or no, whether that was ethical on the part of police, or police should have somehow worked to, shoot below the, belt. There it is opposite of this. Because generally, police are encouraged to shoot below the belt so that a person is injured but doesn't die. And then they catch him and bring him and take him to the court and let the court decide and all that. But of course, we have seen in the past as well, even when the courts decide something, people object. The famous cases, I think, last year or a year before last, when this Yaqub Memon, when he was hanged, there was a huge uproar. The Supreme Court had only passed the decision that he was the fellow who had financed the bombing in March 1993 in Bombay, right? But there was this whole thing, is it ethical, is it the right thing to do? In fact, you will not believe, there are many countries which have, many countries in the world have actually banned capital punishment. And also in many countries, there are a lot of rights for prisoners. You understood? There are a lot of rights for prisoners. Like, I had heard from a friend that in Norway, for example, there are so much convenience for prisoners that any prisoner can apply to the court saying that he's being tortured. So recently there was this criminal in Norway who was a terrorist who had bombed some 80 people. He was in the jail. He said that, I'm being troubled over here and I need my rights. And he got his rights. So basically in several European countries in the jail, if you go, you have a swimming pool, you have spa, you have a gym. You can even call for some, opposite sex member to have some of your recreation. Yeah, that's also allowed. You can go to a university, earn a degree as part of being in the jail. Life is very good actually. Because they believe that we should not do anything. That's their ethics. Okay, so this conflict is always there between ethics and practicality. Are you getting it? That means, how much should one stick to ethics? Especially when you are dealing with people who don't deserve to be dealt with ethically. Are you getting it? There are people like that in the world. You get this point? So the Mahabharata offers another example. I'll come to these things before that. The example of Arjuna killing Karna. Story is pretty similar. That's just one day before this. So the story is that Karna's chariot gets stuck in the mud. And Karna comes to remove the chariot. And the rule, ethics is very clear. That if somebody is on the ground, you can't shoot him. Arjuna is not willing to shoot. Krishna tells, what are you looking? You got to shoot him, man. So Arjuna is saying, come on, why should I shoot him? He's on the ground right now. And Karna also says, hey Krishna, why are you giving him such advice? Don't you know, ethically you are not supposed to shoot when I am on the ground? Krishna said, who are you to talk about ethics? What have you done in your life? Krishna actually tells him at least a dozen incidents where he never obeyed any ethics in his life. In fact, the most recent one Krishna says is 2 days ago, when Abhimanyu, the 16-year-old son of Arjun, was fighting, you shot him from the back. And that was considered completely unethical to shoot someone from behind. 6 of you, you garrowed him and you shot him from all sides and you killed him. Where was your ethics at that time? In fact, Krishna says that since you never obeyed any ethics, you don't deserve only an ethical death. You deserve a death like this only. Then by this time, Arjuna's blood obviously starts boiling and he does what he does. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you is that there is this conflict between idealism and practicality. Please remember, and this conflict is only for those who wish to practice ethics. For someone like Shakuni, Duryodhan, Karna, for example, there was never this conflict. Because they, in any case, right from whatever they did, burning these guys and everything, there was no problem only. So what I'm trying to say is that for an unethical person, the conflict doesn't come. The conflict comes only for a person who wishes to practice ethics. Otherwise, it does not come. Okay, so I'll just take some other examples as well. I mean, this girl, how many of you know who is this girl whom I have put over here? Anyone knows her? Just raise your hand. Okay, so this girl is a 13-year-old Jain girl who died actually in October following a fast. Did any of you observe in the news? There was in Hyderabad this 13-year-old girl, I just forgot her, Aradhana I think her name was. So basically in the Jain religion, culture, whatever, they have this concept of a 68-day fast during this Chaturmas period. And for some reason, this girl who was a 13-year-old, very good family, very rich, affluent family, this girl was encouraged, or she felt that she should fast. And with the support of her family members, she began the fast. She completed the fast at 68 days. 68 days, no food and water, remember. And then at the end of 68 days, she was taken in a huge, there was a lot of praise for her in the community. But 2 days after the fast was over, she died of a cardiac arrest. And the reason was this fast didn't go well for her body. So now the thing is, there was this whole, I'm just surprised that most of you are not well abreast with at Indian news, that you didn't, how many of you knew about this case? Just to ask. Okay, maybe about 10 of you. Okay. So this was all over the news, where people were wondering whether this girl should have been encouraged to fast in the first place. Because those who are of practical approach felt this completely impractical. That why should a 13-year-old girl fast like this? But those of the ideal standard, especially the Jain community, they stood behind the family. They said that no, in our religion this is there, that we have to fast like this at least once in our life for 68 days. And the girl did, and she has got moksha, so it's great, it's finished. So in fact, there was a lot of thing where, there was a lot of pressure from many agencies to arrest the parents, etc. But however, the government couldn't do anything. Because again, the same point, in ethics, how do you interfere? Because then it becomes very difficult. Because then the whole community will revolt against the government and the police, and there will be a huge thing. So nothing really happened. But the point is, this is a very striking example of someone who wanted to follow idealism so strongly that they don't even mind dying for their sake of idealism. That's what it is. Okay. So this view certainly, at least from the Mahabharata perspective, the Mahabharata, I'm saying, does not accept such a view, where you stick to your ideals to such an extent that you die as a result of your ideals. So this is generally very this is very difficult to accept. So the question is, how much will you live for your ideals? Just like, I'll take the example of Gandhi now. Gandhi, he was a principle of what? What principle did he preach? Non-violence. Very good. All of your history knowledge is great. Non-violence. So Gandhi during the World War II was asked, now this British people asked him actually when he had gone to London, that you're talking about non-violence. Hitler and his armies, they're attacking us, they're coming to our homes, they're looting, raping, they're doing everything. Are we supposed to still be non-violent? Gandhi maintained his idealism concept, that yes, under any circumstances, even if someone comes to beat you, you don't react back. Be non-violent. So these are some people who stick to that extent of idealism. Are you getting it? On the other hand, there are people who stick, so another example of someone who stuck to idealism literally to death is this Prithviraj Chauhan. When he was fighting with this Muhammad Ghori for the second time, this commander of Muhammad Ghori, what he did is, some Aitkub, or I forgot his name, the general, when he saw that he was losing the fight, he got a big herd of cattle in between the Mughal army, the Ghori army, and this Prithviraj Chauhan's army. Understanding very well that once cows come in the middle, Prithviraj Chauhan will stop shooting. And when he stops shooting and he lowers his guns, because his ideals are that you can't kill this animal, then we will take advantage and we will shoot them. You understood? So that means the idealism, this is a case of an idealism of someone being exploited by the party to their advantage to win the game. And they won over him and they did whatever they wanted to do. You understood? So I'm just giving you examples where, very radical examples, where someone stuck to idealism in such a way that they almost went to death. Whereas in the Mahabharata we see, Krishna did not support such an idea. He did not tell Bhima that you are supposed to die at the hand of Duryodhana, just following the ethics of the fight. No. Because we are very clear who is right, who is wrong over here. And since that is crystal clear as anything, there is no question. There is no question of simply sticking to an ideal and facing death. You understood this? So that's the perspective of the Mahabharata. So please remember, this does not mean that idealism is not important. Idealism is important from the Mahabharata perspective. But when you are fighting against an enemy who is completely a gone case, who is floating all rules and regulations, with him you don't talk too many ideals. With him you will have to deal with him in a crooked way only. So there are 3 nitis spoken in the Mahabharata. One is called Brihaspati Niti. Brihaspati Niti means ethics. Niti means ethics, remember. Brihaspati Niti means you always do, that means you will always do the right action only, ideally. Okay. Then the second Niti is that of Kanika. Okay, that is Shakuni. That is anything you want to achieve, you achieve in any crooked way possible, and that's fine. That means no, don't care at all for any ideals or regulations. And the third is Krishna's Niti, where his understanding was for doing something good in the world, if it is required to break your so-called ideals, be willing for that. You understood? So there are these three thought processes. So generally Yudhishthir stood for the first. So Yudhishthir, for example, always wanted to do the right thing only. He never wanted to float idealism. He was kind of Gandhi, you can say, was a follower of Yudhishthir, where, always do the right thing, even with a crooked enemy. Shakuni was the opposite, and Krishna was in the middle, where he said that no, for the right cause, you may twist something and get it done. That's how it goes. So I'm just taking some examples of someone who is this gentleman over here? Yeah? Joseph Stalin, yeah. So I've taken his example to show you someone who's kind of an opposite of Gandhi. Just like Gandhi was sticking to his idealism, this guy was so-called hardcore practical. His idea was that anybody in society who is not contributing, who is lame, who is, weak, who is not really doing anything for the state, we can finish him off. In fact, many reports say that Stalin killed more people than Adolf Hitler. He killed his own people. Whoever is not cooperating or really useful. This again comes from the Roman thought. If you see the Roman Empire, they had concepts where if someone was old man and he is not contributing much, kill him. Send him in a boat and just set fire to the boat and he will also die because he has anyway not died, and what are the use of maintaining such a fellow? Isn't that very practical from one perspective? If you see that, why to maintain old people? They are anyway not contributing so much in the GDP or everything of the country. Simply they're sitting and eating. Might as well knock them off. That's an extreme of practical ideas. You get it? Okay, so that's what this guy stood for. Kind of opposite of this. He stood for pure idealism. He stood for pure practicality. Right? So I just wanted to mention this as the first conflict. Okay, the conflict between idealism and practicality. Any question on this before I go ahead? Anybody has any thought on idealism versus practicality? I've clearly said where the Mahabharata fits in, or even the Ramayana, for example, because I think this story I had already told, but I'll still put it again because it's relevant in this context. The story of Vishwamitra, who is in a situation where there's a 12-year drought in the kingdom and there is absolutely no food, and he at one point of time settles with one man to get the meat of a dog to eat it. So when he's asked, hey, how are you ready to eat this? He says that, you see, human life is more important. And I can do so much with my life. So, and at this point, I just have no choice because there's absolutely nothing available. So normally he stuck to his ideals. But in an extreme situation, he was ready to practically understand whatever has to be done. You understood? So the Ramayana and Mahabharata are very clear on the conflict between idealism and practicality. Where generally you stay in the domain of idealism, but if necessary for the ultimate good of the world, and you're really confident that that is for the good of the world, then you may choose a practical approach. Okay. Whereas in the world you see so many extremes, which I just highlighted. Okay. Any thought or any question on this? Anybody has? Yeah. Yeah.
While sticking to idealism,
yeah,
how does one get to know that no, now we need to become crooked?
I would not say crooked. I would say that how would one need to know that I need to do practically? Yeah. So basically that requires some intelligence, and also sometimes, it does require some intelligence to understand where to be flexible. Actually, what is intelligence? Please remember, intelligence is not some bookish knowledge. Real intelligence means to understand in situations in the world how you deal with things. Because situations are going to be different. Right? So, are you going to stick to your idealism till death, like Prithviraj Chauhan did, or Gandhi suggested, or whatever the community did with this girl? Are you going to stick to your ideals to death? Is that one problem? What is the problem with sticking to ideals to death? It makes idealism look very stupid in the eyes of normal people. If you tell people what Gandhi suggested to the British or what Prithviraj Chauhan did, people will say, come on, अगर idealism के साथ मरना पड़ेगा, why to follow ideals? What legacy does it leave in the world? So you have to understand. And so there are two situations. One is, what is it actually, what is the effect of something in the world? You can see that. Okay, so for example, the match between Bhima and Duryodhan, it's not just a match going on where rules have to be followed. It's not like a cricket match going on where if, either party wins, it doesn't make a difference. Oh, it makes a lot of difference. You understood? It makes a lot of difference. It sends a signal to the world that you could be like Duryodhan, you could do all kinds of cheating all your life and finally get away with it. So why should anybody follow any ideals at all? That was Krishna's perspective to Balaram. When the brothers are having a quarrel as to why Bhima hit him below the belt. You understood? So Krishna says, I'm more interested in what message we are living for the world. I'm not interested in this match. That ethics follow hua hai ki nahi in this fighting match. Hitting below the belt. No, that's the last concern. Right. Any other point here? Okay, great. We'll have some more time for questions to the end. So let's go ahead. Okay, now the next one. Intention or action. Okay, now try to get this one. Intention or action. The point here is, this is especially when we are dealing with people. This is interpersonal. Remember I told you I am dealing with 3 domains. Personal, interpersonal, leadership. So all these 3 will come at different times. So now I am talking in ethics about intention and action. That means when somebody does something, do you judge that person by, remove that slide. When somebody does something, do you judge that activity by their intention or by their action? Tell me. When you are dealing with your father, mother, brother, sister, your neighbor, your husband, wife, whatever, your friend, and when they do something to you, when they say something or when something happens, do you judge them by their intention or you judge them by their action? Yeah, how many of you say that we generally judge people by action? I mean, very practically tell me, don't tell me ideal standard. Just tell me what people do in general. Okay, great. How many of you feel we judge people by their intention? Okay, good. Yeah, so first of all, I'll tell you, intention is certainly very important. Action is also important, but not that it is not, but intention is. Just like even in the Indian Penal Code, if you know, there are 2 types of murder. One is premeditated, pre-planned murder. That is, for example, if I buy a gun, a revolver, put bullets in it, go to somebody's house and then knock him down, that's considered premeditated murder. Uske liye punishment is different. There is another type of murder which the Indian Constitution calls culpable homicide not amounting to murder, where I just have a fight with someone on the road. Let's say, like this Navjot Singh Sidhu, if you know, he once some years ago, his car banged somebody's car and there was a roadside fight and Sidhu killed him. That man died. Yeah, of course. But that was not considered as murder of the first kind. That was considered culpable homicide not amounting to murder. That means you didn't intend to kill him. Jagade mein ho gaya. Intention. No, this is Indian Constitution. If you want to change it, please get elected to the Indian Parliament and do something about it. How many of you knew about it? Do you know that such rules exist or you don't? Yeah, there are. There is premeditated murder which has a different punishment, and there is an accidental murder that happens sometimes in somebody's hand which has a different punishment. Punishment hai usko. It is not that punishment is not there. But that punishment is much less. It may be 10 years imprisonment. Whereas the other one is either life imprisonment or hanged to death. So the punishment is different. Are you getting it? All I want to say is that intention is important to see. Now let us say what the Ramayana has to say about this. Okay. Yeah, I want your attention. So there is this whole story in Ramayana that talks about intention action. Of course, I'm sure most of you have heard the basic story, but I'll just narrate the parts where this whole thing comes up. Especially we are talking in a family. Okay. And our epics generally say the ethic here is, this is an ethic, please remember, it's not a law. It's like ideally you follow. Judge oneself by action and other by their intention. This is the ethic. That means you have to, when you do something, don't look at your intention, look at your action. Because otherwise in the name of your intention, you can justify any nonsense. Whereas when you look at another person, especially a close person, look at their intention, don't look at their action. Okay, so the story comes up in the Ramayana where the theme which I am focusing on is Ram, Sita and Lakshman have gone to Chitrakoot in the forest for their 14 years, whatever one was. And that time Bharat comes with his army to bring Ram back. So when these three, Ram, Sita and Lakshman, are sitting in their forest, suddenly there is a huge noise of an army approaching. So Ram is asking Lakshman, just climb the tree and see who is coming. So Lakshman climbs the tree, and then he sees Bharat, because he sees the, the army would have certain symbols, and he understood that this is my brother's army only coming. So he announced from top, oh, this Bharat has come with his army to kill us. Don't worry, but I myself will go and kill everybody. So Ram is asking, who told you that he has come to kill us? Lakshman said, of course, he has come with his army. What other purpose he has? He has come to kill us only. You understood? So what was Lakshman doing with his brother in that context? Talking about him, judging him by the action. Looking at the army that has come, he assumed that army means to kill. Ram is saying, no, he may not have that intention at all. He is coming with the army because he is a prince, he is a king and a prince, wherever he goes, he comes with his army only. He is a normal, even a small MLA doesn't walk alone. He walks with 5 cars up and down, right? Ahead of him 3 cars, behind 2 cars, middle that fellow. So why will a king of Ayodhya walk alone in the forest? He is coming with his army, that's fine. Why do you judge him like that? So the Ramayana explains that because Lakshman, so this is also the karma coming up here. When you question people's action without looking at their intention, your intentions also nobody understands. So the story continues where later, when Ram goes to deal with that deer, which is Marich, and Lakshman is there to protect Sita, at that time, there is a sound that comes, which is of the dying Marich. Hey Lakshman, please come and help me. So Sita is telling Lakshman, hey, your brother is calling you, go and help. Lakshman says, it is not my brother, it is that Marich only, whom he has gone to kill. If I go, there will be danger for you. So Sita gets panicky because she fears her husband's life. She says that I know why you are saying like that. Because you are waiting here, you had come to the forest with thinking that, when will my husband die so that you can enjoy me. I am not going to allow you to touch me. I am going to commit suicide right now. You understood? So she goes into that mode. So what is Sita doing over there in that story? She is questioning Lakshman's what? She is looking at his intention or action? Action. Please remember, not intention. From the action, she is concluding something. Lakshman's action was what? Stay back. I am not going anywhere. So that action is questioned by her. That means from the action, she comes out with her own idea of why he wishes to stay back. Are you understanding? But the story doesn't again end there. The story continues. Because Sita questions Lakshman's intention, her intentions are also questioned later. So when they come back to Ayodhya after everything is over, the common people of Ayodhya say that, how come our queen is like this, who has stayed 10 months with another man's palace, she is sitting as our queen, is it right? They start questioning Sita's intentions based on whatever happened. Are you getting it? So that also happens in the story later. It's unavoidable, please remember, because anybody who occupies a top post, people look at their ethics. Not only in the Ramayana or Mahabharata, even in today's world. You'll not believe in this election that's going on in America between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, which, some colleague recently told me it is like an election between Mayawati and Mulayam Singh, where they're trying to choose one of the two. So, this Donald Trump's wife, it just so happens that she previously, in the 90s, she was like a kind of a very celebrity in Europe, where she has several photos of her completely nude. And the American newspapers have published that, saying that this is how our first lady looks like, So all I'm trying to say is that in any country, people look at the ethics of the top people. Are you getting it? So in the Ramayana also, even though Sita did nothing wrong, she was kidnapped, but still people started questioning her. The point which the Ramayana teaches is, when you question others' action and don't see their good intention, the same thing happens to you back. And that cycle keeps repeating. You understood? So this is a cycle of where nobody understands our intentions also. And that's why you see sometimes in close relationships, someone says, "Arey, mera intention koi samajhta hi nahi hai. I actually have good intentions." But then people don't understand. The understanding here is that you have never tried to understand anyone's intention in your life. So how will people understand yours? Okay, so the ethic over here is that judge yourself by action. Because yourself you can't say intention, but others by the intention. This is another interesting story which I wanted to say. It's a very true story. In the Indian Army, so in 1971 war, there was this Lieutenant General or whatever, I forgot the post, his name is Arun Ketrapal. So he died in the war in December 1971. In 2005, his father and mother, their names are, his father was also in the army. He was a retired brigadier. G.N. Ketrapal and his wife, they decided to go to Pakistan to see their ancestral home because their family comes from Pakistan. So they made some contacts and finally there was one brigadier in Pakistan whose name was General Nasir, retired. So he told Ketrapal that I will be your host. Come to my home, I will take you around. So the father and mother of this boy in 2006, just 10 years ago, they went to Pakistan to their ancestral home, and this General Nasir from that side, he took them around for 3 days. But throughout the journey, he was a little sad, Nasir. On the last day before coming back to India, Ketrapal asked him, what's the problem? I don't see you to be very happy, though you treated us so well. So then Nasir said, you see, the problem is that I only killed your son in 1971. Because I was on the other side of the border, and it was I who shot the tank, the ammunition that killed Arun. And I was aware of that. But I just wanted to apologize and tell you that there was no such intention. It's just that, we were two sides of the army, and we were just fighting for the sake of our respective countries. And it so happened that I lived and your son died. So Ketrapal said, no worries. I'm happy that at least my son could give up his life for his country, but you did not get that opportunity. And he also said that as such, you had no intentions to kill my son. It is just that it happened as part of it. That's fine. And he comes back. So this whole story is there on Wikipedia as well. If you go to Arun Ketrapal, you will see the story. It's a very interesting thing where generally that's the rule in military also. You judge people, you only look at intentions. You cannot see actions. The action may be very cruel, but you have to see intention. What can a person do? You're fighting for one side of the country, you have to shoot someone. And whoever is dying, he's also a son, a husband of someone who dies. Just like we remember earlier, I had told you the story of Siachen Glacier, right? Of that army story which I had read in a newspaper there, where the 7 people are going, one of them gets stuck in a crevice. So the crevice is like this. So this guy is stuck here and ice all over him. So the army captain comes and he tries to rescue this fellow for 2-3 hours. Finally understands that nothing will happen and the crevice can close any time. And they also understand that if you leave him there, this fellow who was stuck in the crevice, he can die after many days. It's not necessary they'll die immediately. So the army captain, he tells him, Bhagwan ko yaad karo. He tells him, abhi kuch nahi kar sakte hum. 2 ghanta prayatna kiya, Bhagwan ko yaad karo. That's it. And then finally the captain does another thing. That comes in the article actually. He says that I went down with a rope and did something very reluctantly. It's not written in the story what he did. But it is understandable when you read the story. That what he did was, he went with a rope and strangulated him. Now the action is ghastly. But what is the intention? The intention is that he knows that if he stays there, he may see death, a slow death, over a period of a week. Because there is enough oxygen over there. You will not die so easily. You will have to starve to death literally, inch by inch. Which will be so torturous that the captain decided, let me only kill him. So point is, in all such cases, how do you judge people? By their intention or by their action? You look at people's intention. So that's why the ethic which is spoken of in the Ramayana story as well as which is seen in the world is, judge oneself by action and others by intention. Because others' action you cannot question. You can only question the intention. Please remember, this is not a legal framework. This is all ethic. In a legal framework, you don't talk about this. There you have to see action and all that. But in a dealing, in personal dealing, in personal space, you deal like that. Any question on this quickly? Any comment on this? On this dilemma between intention and action. Again, please remember, for one who doesn't want to follow this, ethic doesn't come only. You just do what you wish to, so there's no problem at all. Any question or comment? Mike there. Yeah.
So one should judge someone by their intention,
yeah.
But in reality, in practicality, everyone is judged by their actions only. Like if a mother loses her son in a war,
yeah.
And that person who killed her son apologizes to her, she'll never consider his intention. She'll always hate him because he killed her son.
Yeah, that's why I took the example and showed you of mature behavior of Ketrapal and Mrs. Ketrapal. So, they were also parents, who were 86 and 85-year-old when they met General Nasir. But they understood, ultimately, how can you say it is Nasir's fault? It was not, see, please remember, killing in a war is different from personal killing. You understood, no? Killing in a war is like there are two armies on two sides and both are shooting each other. Somebody will die only in that. So now, you understood the point. So if you just put yourself in the Nasir's shoe and see, what does he do? This fellow was 21 years when he died, in 1950 born. Nasir is also a 1950 born, retired brigadier in Pakistan. He was 21 years at that time. He was a lieutenant general from their side, shooting. I told the story specifically to say, someone who had the maturity to understand the intention. Otherwise, there are so many people who see only action. And that's what the story of the Ramayana also has said, where you see action and come to your own conclusion. But that is problematic. And especially with close people, how can you just see their action and say? So for Lakshman to tell about Bharat when he is his brother, or Sita to tell about Lakshman when he is her brother-in-law, in a very close relationship, in a family, you should know what the other person's intention is. How can you question their action like that? So there is a problem. Yeah, makes sense? Any other point? Okay, we'll go ahead. If you have any question. Okay, fine. Just one more, last one.
But this so-called ethic can also be exploited, right? Like if someone is trying to apologize to someone, saying that, look at my intentions, don't judge me by my actions.
Yeah.
It's up to the person to decide whether to judge him by the actions or the intentions. This ethic, so-called ethic, can also be exploited.
Yeah, I understood. But I would also like to put a word of caution here by saying that several times, in the fear of the fact that we may be exploited, people are not willing to budge an inch from their stand. You understood? Where then there is no cooperation at all. So obviously, if someone is doing something repeatedly, then then it becomes a different thing totally. But when someone does something in a particular circumstance, and especially that's why I told you very clearly, I'm looking mainly from a very close network of a family society where you're dealing with people whom you know well. Dealing with them, it's very easy to understand their intentions also, why they are saying something. Why your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, your husband, your wife, someone, child, says something. Very easy to see the intention. What to speak of something like this, where someone sees the good intention even of a fellow across the border who killed their son. That's like an extreme example of seeing the intention even there. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah?
Are there any examples where where action is more preferred than intention?
Yeah, in the legal framework. See, officially, please remember, I am talking from the ethic perspective. In a legal framework, you see action only and understand, right? Like when in courtroom and all, when they present evidences, everything is action oriented. If everybody in the court is talking only about intention, then nothing will proceed. Nobody will be punished or... You understood the point, right? In the legal framework, it doesn't have. Even Kasab, for example, what intention he had, he came from a very poor family where, he was brainwashed. If you see all that intentions and say that, oh, he's a very nice guy. That's what many people do also, by the way. Huh? They say that don't hang him, nice gentleman. Somehow by force of circumstance, he joined Lashkar-e Toiba and he came here. He didn't have that real bad intention. He's a good human at heart. Don't hang him. There you cannot see. In the legality, you cannot see. You got to see actions. I'm talking in a personal space where legality doesn't come in. I made that very clear. Yeah, makes sense? Okay, let's go ahead. The next one is bargain or accommodate. Now, this is another interesting dilemma or conflict in ethic. I hope you understand bargaining means in any relationship or any dealing, generally, you understand what is bargaining, right? Bargaining means for your favor, get maximum things. Accommodate means understand others' situation also. Now, I'll tell you what is the meaning of all this stuff that I put over here. So, I start with a story from the Mahabharata of Bhishma. So, the story is simple that Bhishma's father is the king whose name is Shantanu. This Shantanu had one son, Bhishma, and his wife was not there. Ganga had already gone, disappeared. So he fell in love with the daughter of a fisherman whose name was Satyavati, this Shantanu, and he wanted to marry her. So he went to this fisherman who was the father of this girl and asked for the daughter in marriage. That fisherman was in the domain of bargaining. He said that, see, I will give my daughter only on one condition, that her son should become king. So Shantanu says, oh God, this is too difficult. Because he already has a very grown-up son, it's like a 20-year-old boy, Bhishma, and who is very competent as well. not that the son. And another ethic in the Mahabharata is, or in the Indian understanding of Kshatriya code is that a kingdom cannot be divided. A kingdom is not considered a personal property of a king. So that's why kings could never break their kingdom into parts and give their children. It's not like a landlord who owns 20 acres of land and has 10 children, gives everyone 2 acres and dies. No. That is his personal property. King cannot. So Shantanu knew that neither I can break the kingdom, nor can I do this. He goes back. But he's very sad. So he goes home and he's always morose. So the son is asking, Bhishma is asking, hey, what's wrong, dad? Anything is troubling you? He says, see, I have only one son, you're there. If something happens to you, what will happen to the kingdom? He started speaking all this. Bhishma thought something is wrong. So he tries to find out. And then he goes to that fisherman. And he tells the fisherman, hey, what's the problem? My dad wants to marry your daughter, so why don't you agree? He says that, see, I want her son only should become king, not you. Bargaining. So Bhishma says, that's all right. I promise, I'll never become king. Problem over. So fisherman says, he's not happy with that. He says, that's okay, you will not become king. But your children later will start fighting with my daughter's children, saying that the kingdom was actually so problem it will be. So Bhishma says, okay, I'll take a second promise. I will never marry. So that's the place in the Mahabharata where his name changes from Devavrat to Bhishma. Where he says, Now this is a case of bargaining to the core, where you bargain like anything for yourself. Now interestingly, if you see, the whole problem in Mahabharata happens from here. Because this Satyavati, when she gets married, she has 2 sons who die without having children. And then there is the whole complication of who becomes the king next. And then there's the whole story of the Mahabharata that is there. You understood? So many times in life what happens is, each of us, we all want something for ourselves. So when we want something for ourselves, we bargain. And sometimes we bargain a little too much. And that bargaining too much hits back. And that hits back in many ways. So that's what I call as bargaining. So I want to take some practical examples to tell you what it means of bargaining and accommodating. Like in Eastern cultures as well as in several places in India, so the concept of joint family existed, where people stayed together. The principle of human beings staying together cooperatively happens when you bargain or when you accommodate. When you accommodate. If you are going to bargain too much, you cannot stay together with people. Because if you want to think too much about yourself, then how can you cooperate with others? You can't stay together. So for example, I've just, so for example, all over the world today, where by and large the tendency is to bargain a lot, where everyone is primarily concerned about himself or herself only and not about anybody else. So we all know that all kinds of family structures have collapsed world over. In Europe it has collapsed long ago, in India also it is. But please remember that bargaining has a price to pay. And that's what ethic teaches us here. Okay, so for example, I have things here. I don't know whether I showed you these pictures? No, earlier. So this, for example, on the right side what I have is a joint family photograph of one Gadgil, the P.N. Gadgil family, the jewelers in Pune. It's a very old, 100 years back, Purana photo. Their joint family photo. I want to contrast that with this advertisement that I picked up from an American newspaper, which basically says, find someone who understands. Basically here, because in America this is a very big business, counseling therapy. So that means she's a psychologist or a psychiatrist who has advertised saying Center for Problem Solving Therapy, where this man has no one to speak to. And the advertisement says, finally someone who understands. You understood? So I want to show this as also an example of bargaining gone wrong, as in that when people stayed together in a family network, this problem wasn't so much there, because the reason is very simple, that when you have 20 people in your family with whom you are closely bonded, even if 2-3 people you don't get along with, there are others with whom you get along with and you can share your woes. The whole question of someone who understands doesn't arise itself, because in this huge lot you can always find one man or woman who will understand you. That may not be your husband or wife, but no problem, someone in the family only understands you, so you are happy over there. So this is on one hand, where this is, please remember, a very big business in in the Western world all over where, there are counseling centers where you can have somebody to talk to. Another problem is old people having nobody to take care. So I read this article again, picked up from a magazine, where this was about a story of a German old age home. So world over in the developed world, old age homes are extremely popular, because of bargaining. So nobody likes to accommodate an old man or old woman. So they send them off. So there are in Germany, you'll not believe, 5-star, 7-star old age homes, as in extremely opulent with all facilities. So there was this whole article that said about what are the challenges in such a 7-star old age home. I was interested to read it. So the article said that the problem is that the people over there are all very wealthy people, because you have to afford money. They are all retired scientists, professors and lawyers, big people who worked a lot in life, and now they are in an old age home because there's nobody to take care of them, and they're generally single. The spouse is either divorced or dead. Single. And their problem is that main problem is nobody to talk to. So the article said that the nurses in the old age home, they have a rule that every nurse speaks to the client only for 3 minutes, to take BP or something, and then goes away. It seems the old man or the old woman pleads the nurse, please stay another 2 minutes to just talk to me. The nurse says, no, I have several appointments today. I'm not interested to do that. And she walks off. So that article illustrated with this example story to tell about how these people face a problem of loneliness in the main feature in their old age. Now, if you see why this has happened because of a culture where we have encouraged what? Mainly bargaining, where everybody has thought for only himself or herself and never learned to accommodate anybody. So please remember, this is not a law. Like for example, by law can you say that you have to take care of your parents? No, you cannot. Come on, how can that be? That's an ethic. That's not a law. Just like I read this another story recently of the Indian couple from Pune only, based in Australia. So his parents were in India. So he convinced his father that, why don't you sell your property and come to Australia and stay with us? I'll ensure you get green card and whatever. So parents said, okay. So then he also said, do one thing, first you transfer the property in my name so that I can sell it and bring it to Australian dollars. Father said, okay. He converted the property in son's name. Son came, sold it, took the parents to Bombay airport and made them sit, saying that, I'll just get some water or something, and then just vanished. He flew to Melbourne. And after a long time sitting, the parents understood that our son is actually gone. And he has gone with all the money as well. And legally you can't do anything, because legally he sealed it up very nicely. You understood? So there's a height of bargaining for oneself, where you just don't wish to accommodate. And that has its own, idea. So this whole thing is, so it's an ethic which you follow in relationships. Do you bargain for yourself or do you accommodate the other person? And how much will you bargain? That will decide, various other complications that come up in that relationship. Any question on this? Before I just go ahead. Any other question on? Any question or comment on this? Yeah. Great. Oh, bargain means, like you go to buy vegetables, you bargain, right? I want less price. So bargaining relationship means I want so much for myself. Bargaining in a relationship means that I set all the terms for the relationship in favor of me. Like Bhishma. He said that, my daughter will marry your father, you will not be king, you will not get married also, all this will happen, then my daughter will marry. He set all the terms for himself. Bargaining for his own interest, not accommodating the other person. Legally, no problem. It's an ethic over here. When you're dealing with people, do you bargain or accommodate? And I just wanted to say through all these examples that bargaining does go wrong in life. Because unless you accommodate, you don't achieve anything. That's all I'm saying. Make sense? Any other comment? Yeah? Okay, so we'll go ahead. Okay, this example I didn't want to, I didn't. Okay, everything is okay? Yeah. This example I just forgot to elaborate a little bit. Karna. So Karna, in the story again in the Mahabharata of bargaining is that he has a kavach. Kavach means a shield, which is extremely powerful. So he will not die. He will not be shot at least in this area. It's a protection. But then he wants to kill Arjun. So how will he kill him? So when Indra comes and asks the shield, he calculates actually. He thinks that if I give the shield in return for a weapon from Indra with which I can kill Arjun, I may be able to kill him. Because otherwise I cannot kill him at all. But at least there will be a chance. So it's a bargaining that went wrong. Basically he lost his life also. And that shield also he used with someone else. And the story was over. Anyway, so I'll not go more into that right now. So the next thing is, handling conflict is, do we give importance to substance in our life or superficiality in our life? Please remember, there are these two things. Huh? Substance means what? Real stuff. Where you know what is substance, right? Now by substance I don't mean, like substance usage as in drugs or something. I'm talking about substance as in real values and wanting to do something for the world. In that sense, substance. Superficiality means So first of all, superficiality is also important. Though it looks like a very negative connotation. Somehow in this world, everybody has to show off also a little bit. If you don't, then nobody takes you seriously actually. If you pretend to be too simple a person, then everybody takes you for a ride. Like you go for an interview. It's not just enough that you have substance of technical knowledge. You also have to make a show over there in terms of, I know Java, I know this, I know that. You got to show. Otherwise that fellow will not hire you, man. He will say that, I'm a man of deep substance, I don't talk much, I'm not superficial at all. It becomes difficult, right? But this is a clash. How much importance to give for substance? How much for superficiality? Okay, so I hope at least in all this, you know this lady over here. Anyone who doesn't know her, who is here? Everyone knows her? You don't know? Everyone knows her. She is I have put her photo here. She is the most, that means in India on Google, she is the one who is maximum searched. Yeah. She is maximum searched on Google. Yeah, really. She's searched. That just tells as a country as a whole, whether we all give importance to substance or superficiality. How many of you know this lady for a change? Okay, that's about 20% of the crowd. I'll tell you who she is. Even those who know, how many of you know her story completely, by the way? I mean, you may know her story. I'm not interested in that. This lady whom you see on the right is a social worker in India whose name is Sindhutai Sapkal. Her story is just amazing. I'll just narrate in brief. Her story is that she was married off at the age of 10 to a man who was 31 years old. She had 3 sons from her between the age 10 to 20. And when she was 20, she was pregnant for the 4th time. At that time, someone in the village poisoned her husband, saying that she has an affair with me and this child is actually mine. And the husband, what he did, he beat this pregnant wife of his, kicked her and threw her out, saying that you die because you did this to me. And he kicked her repeatedly in the abdomen and threw her into the Goshala, where all the cows are there, thinking that, she will die there and we can say that cows stampede mein mar gayi. But what happens is, she delivers a child there. And she delivers a girl at the age of 20, a 4th child, in the cowshed. And then she takes the child and goes. She goes to her parents' home. But as is the case several times, her parents also do not entertain her, saying that, no, we don't want you now, get out. So she has nowhere to go. So she's contemplating suicide. So she's going with her baby girl to jump in front of a running train. When she's going to do that, there is a poor man who comes begging for food. She's saying that, I want food, please give me, begging for food. Looking at him, she feels, instead of dying foolishly, why not use my life for this cause of taking care of such destitute and, lost people in the world. And at that time, she sees a tree where there is a branch of the tree that is broken, semi-broken, but still it is giving shade to people who are sitting under the tree. So she feels that if a broken branch can give shade, why can't a broken life like me give shade to people? So that becomes her inspiration. And from then on, she basically sets on this long journey of life where she takes care of thousands of orphans. She's got over 270 awards from all over the world for the work that she has done. 2 of her sons come to her later. 2 of her sons they get doctorate degree. her daughter, which was born under that cowshed, she becomes a medical doctor to take care of the orphans, etc. And this abusive husband of hers, in old age, when he's 80, he is also, somehow things go wrong in his life, and he comes to her ashram for help, saying that take care of me, and she does it. She says that I'll take care of you also, no problem. Okay. So it's a very inspiring story of someone who, really does something of great substance, perhaps hardly any superficiality around here. Okay, even in her dressing style and whatever she is standing the way she is presented over here. But still the fact remains that as a society in general, at least my observation, I'm not sure if I'm right or wrong, is that the very fact that, this lady is only the most Googled star in India suggests that as a country, perhaps most of us are behind superficiality, which is why we're interested in her. Otherwise, there was no real need. I mean, so you see that. So the question is, are we generally interested in substance or superficiality? So though I said some superficiality perhaps may be important in life to make a mark somewhere, like I gave an example of an interview, but the question is that the only thing that you're going to give importance to? You understood this? Okay. And to the extent we do that, we decide that kind of an ethic. So this is again an ethic, please remember, it's not illegal or anything. Okay, so now going back to the Mahabharata, the example is of Karna and Arjun. Again, very interesting and contrary examples. Both are actually brothers, but still, fate happens that they grow separately. And if you see Karna, his whole life was centered basically around the fact that, he was always feeling that I have talent, but I am not able to become the king and so on. Of course, Duryodhana gives him one kingdom called Anga and makes him the king of that place. But the history is that Karna never goes to Anga only. He literally never goes there. He is sitting with Duryodhana only, scheming and plotting what to do against the Pandavas. That means if you see that person's life, the entire life was about just trying to show off his skills and trying to show. Karna's main interest was to show to the world that I am better than Arjun. That means interested in portraying that superficiality of trying to establish who's better than whom, and that's it. Whereas Arjun, if you see his life was actually centered around using power or using his strength to do something that's actually valuable for society, and that's there right from the beginning. So even for example, so the 5 men, the Pandavas, they had married one lady. So that was again a force of circumstance. So they had decided some rules, some ethics in the family. So the ethics was that they said that, since we 5 are having one wife, every year one husband will be with her. And when the husband is with her in the private chamber, other brother will not come in. So they had decided an ethic. So when they are in Hastinapur, when they are in Indraprastha, when they are ruling, once what happens is that there is a band of dacoits who have made a big loot and they are running somewhere. The news comes to Arjun that this band of dacoits have attacked and they have taken and they are running in that direction. So Arjun's weapons are all in the room of Yudhishthira where Draupadi is sitting. So that rule was there. So but again, ideally he shouldn't have, but he just walked in to take the weapons. Of course, those days they didn't have a cell phone to SIM and to WhatsApp. Hey, I want to come in, man. Just give my weapons. And they didn't have that facility. So he just barges in the room, takes the weapons, goes out, kills whatever he does, catches the bandits or does whatever he has to do as a king and comes back. And then he says that I have broken the rule, and the punishment and the rule was to go to the forest for 12 years. That was their self-imposed punishment. They decided that one brother will be with her every time, and if anybody else walks in, they have to go to the forest for 12 years for breaking that rule. So he breaks it, but he goes. So the whole point is Arjun's entire life was about only using his strength whenever required for an ideal cause and not simply to show off. Whereas because this gentleman, Karna, his whole purpose was simply to show that he is better, but he never achieved that also, because when you live your life only for superficiality just to establish your superiority over someone, it doesn't work very long actually. I mean, how long are you going to, show that? So the life is also disastrous. So again, this life is a contradiction between substance and superficiality, and this is again which all of us in our own personal, even professional spaces will have to decide. How much show off to do vis-a-vis how much true substance to have. And it's an ethic. which we decide for ourselves. Make sense? Yeah. Any question at this point here? It's okay? Yeah. So I'll just take this last conflict here, and before we go on to something else. Yeah. So this is about this is a conflict between when we take decisions in life, whether the decisions are for duty oriented or desire oriented. That means basically, are we wishing to sacrifice our life selflessly or selfishly? You understood this? So please remember, this is a conflict because it is a fact that in all of our lives, we are all duty centric also, but at the same time we have some desires also, correct? I mean, at the end of the day, it's not, you can't live completely on duty platform thinking that it's my duty to do so many things. Come on, man, what about my boss? So everybody has some desires as well. But still, by and large, your major decisions are governed by your duty consciousness or desire consciousness. And that's actually the clash which you see in the Mahabharata. Again, this I have taken this is a photograph of the Star Plus actors, by the way, who acted as Yudhishthira and Duryodhan. So, in the Mahabharata, again, you see this conflict between Duryodhan and Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira on one hand was completely duty conscious. He was fighting the war, everything as a duty, just because, and there was nothing he got at the end also, as in all his sons were dead, everything was finished. You know, but still, he was coached by his mentor Krishna that you need to fight this war as a duty. Because it's not the right thing that this Duryodhan is ruling. So we need a good king in place. You know, so the duty conscious approach. Whereas Duryodhan was leading his life from the desire consciousness. That means it was all about desire. You know, it was just for me because I want to enjoy as a king. So I am here. It's not about the duty primarily. The desire overpowers the duty. So the conflict here is the duty overpowering the desire or the desire overpowering duty? And the ethic, the Mahabharata teaches that your duty only should always overpower your desire, not the other way around. And that's personal space one should see. So please remember, sacrificing one's life is unavoidable. Everybody sacrifices. Like for example, I put here the photograph of a suicide bomber in some place where he bombs himself to death. He has sacrificed actually. He sacrificed his life, but his sacrifice is, though he thinks it is selfless, but actually it's extremely selfish. I mean, he did it for extremely self-centered reasons, either because his family got some money for him blasting himself, or because he has been promised by his religious beliefs that he will go to heaven and enjoy 72 virgins or something, because of which he blasted himself like this. So it's a very selfish kind of sacrifice. You know, so again, we go to the Ramayana, where the story of sacrifice comes in, where Ravan wishes to kidnap Sita, so he is wondering how to do that. So he has his uncle whose name is Marich, and this uncle of his has some ability of taking different forms of animals. So he tells him that, you know, why don't you become a deer and allure Ram away and call Lakshman also, then I'll kidnap Sita. Marich says, I don't want to do that, I'll die. So Ravan says, if you don't go, I will kill you. So Marich thinks it's better for me to die from Ram's hand than your hand. So I'll go. And he goes. So he sacrifices his life. But he sacrifices in a life selflessly or selfishly? Selfishly. Because he didn't think of the overall benefit of the whole thing. He was just thinking from his perspective that I don't want to die from your hand. See? Ravan killed. What a useless thing. At least Ram killed, some name for me. That was his thought, but it was a very selfish thought, mind you. Whereas on the other hand, there was this bird which was living in the ashram of this Ram, Sita, Lakshman, the bird is named as Jatayu. And that bird, it's a vulture, but that bird also tries to fight with Ravan, understanding fully that I will die. But the bird also offers a fight. It also sacrifices only. But that's a selfless sacrifice. So the whole question is, it's a duty desire conflict, you know, in general. So please remember, this conflict between duty and desire will come in our professional life. That means whichever profession we take in this world, like when I am a teacher, that's my profession. So is a person, for example, becoming a teacher, doctor, whatever, out of desire for the money, for the position, or it is because he sees that as the ideal platform for him to work and do something for the world. You understood? That's a conflict. That's a conflict which you decide. And more the people are working from the desire platform, more there are problems in the sense there are other set of problems. Like, I mean, since I'm just talking about teachers and doctors, like if you see doctors, you know, there are all these reports that have come up recently that nowadays in most corporate hospitals, if you step your foot in, you're almost finished. You know, because they will bill you for so many things, make so many tests, because they have all these targets to achieve. It's like a multinational company where every doctor has to achieve targets. So when you work on desire platform, you act unethically. That's the point here, right? So that's the conflict between beauty and desire. So with that, we kind of summarize these 5 conflicts that we spoke of. If someone wishes to work under the ethical banner, am I working for idealism? Am I standing for idealism? And if I'm standing for idealism, when the situation calls, will I do what is practical? That is the first one. Second one, do I really look people at their intention or action? In my close circles, I'm not talking from the legal framework. I'm talking in a personal space. Do I bargain too much for myself in relationships, or I accommodate? That was the third one where we... So the first one, the examples that we saw were, just let's recap a little quickly so that... Yeah, in idealism and practicality, which examples did I show? Yeah, one second. Loudly. Prithviraj Chauhan, okay. Any other examples? Gandhi, okay. Any other? Stalin, okay. Anything else? Krishna and Arjun, the Bhima, the fight with Bhima, idealism and practicality, right? Okay, intention, action, what were the examples that we saw? Yeah, Lakshman, that Bharat, Sita, that entire chain of looking at people's action and understanding something. Okay, and I also showed you the army example. Bargain or accommodate? I started with the example of Shantanu and then I moved to the example of family in general. How much you bargain for yourself and how much you accommodate. Because please remember, family is the best example where you have to actually accommodate people. If you bargain too much only for yourself, you cannot maintain any relationship. It's a very clear thing, because if everything has to be according to your terms, why will anybody live with you? I mean, because if it's something, everything is so selfish, then nobody will really, want to have any relationship with anyone. Okay, then superficiality or substance, of course, that example was, I think, something you'll always remember. So, yeah, we saw Arjun Karna, and on the other hand, we saw Sindhu Tai and that other lady, the most Googled star of India. Okay. Then we also saw about duty and desire. Okay, fine. So now I'll take you to my last slide, and this is one slide where I just summarize several things in the context of view of the world, and then we will conclude with Chanakya. So that's another 15 minutes to go. Yeah, so the first thing is, so this is now, we are talking about ethics when we relate to the world. That means when we are actually in the world and functioning. See, one thing is that there is something called distress that comes up in life. You understood? That means tough situations. So what we are talking is, in tough situations, do you quit or do you fight? Okay, so generally what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to fight. But still, in several tough situations, many people tend to quit. Can you tell me, how do people quit in a distressful situation? What do they do? What do you mean by quitting in distressful situation? Anyone? Suicide. Suicide is one. I quit by just hanging myself. Finish off. Okay. Anything else? How people quit in distress? Surrender as in what? I mean, not with an enemy. I mean, I understand. Like India, Pakistan are fighting. You just go there and say that. No. Okay, that's one thing. In a personal space, how does one quit? They settle for something less. Yeah. And can you give me an example of something less that people settle for, the way they quit in distress?
Mostly when like people want to follow their passion, like in their job, in their career, they want to follow their passion. Yeah, it also comes with,
Yeah, understood. So you're saying that they settle for something less. They feel that, I'll not be able to do it. But I want to ask you exactly. Yeah, okay. That is also a very good example, that even with small difficulties, they actually quit. There was one, I saw in which paper, I forgot. The headlines that I saw on first page was something like this. Judge advises wife to follow in the footsteps of Sita. So I said, come on, what is this? And judge is advising like that, Bombay High Court. So the story was of a Mumbai couple who had applied for divorce. And the reason was this man was a government employee and he had been central government and he had been transferred to Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And the wife said, I don't want to go there, so I am divorcing. So the judge told, why don't you be like Sita? When Ram went to the forest, he also went, she also went behind him. Why don't you go to Andaman and Nicobar? See, please remember, in Indian, the judges have a right to advise. That's ethical. It's not legally binding on you to accept that advice. You can say that I don't want. Fine. But that I saw, judge advises woman to follow the Sita. So this is a very interesting point, where you quit in some small distress. Okay, I have to go to Andaman and Nicobar for 2 years. Maybe my friends will not be there around and, all sea everywhere, whatever. But then, that is not a very big distress also. But still, people quit. And that's a very good example. Another way people quit, for example, in distress is taking intoxicant. So generally, most people take intoxicant, drugs, alcohol, everything when they are either too happy also and when they are too sad also. Because in both cases, they see that as an easy way to quit the situation. So the Mahabharata, that's why it presents the example of Pandavas. So I'm sorry, the picture over here is very faint, but this is the painting of the gambling match where Yudhishthir and the Pandavas lose everything. And when they have lost everything and they have been humiliated in such a way, such an insulting way that, their wife was stripped in public, even on such a critical, such a very tough situation, not to quit and to say that, no, we will still come back and we will win is something very difficult. So that's a very important lesson over there, that even in severe distress, don't quit. Keep fighting the fight of life, because that you cannot actually quit. Because again, just going back to philosophy a little bit, you can't quit because you got to come back again in the world. So there's no use quitting. So might as well fight the challenge rather than quitting. That's the lesson here. Whose movement fight kyun nahi kiya? Very good. That's a question. The thing is, that's what, idealism and practicality. They were caught in those ideals. They were caught in the ideals that Beam. They also had, the other younger brothers had an ideal that we will listen to our elder brother. They were all stuck in ideals. And that was, please remember, it was condemned by Krishna later. When Krishna meets these people in the forest, he says, what nonsense, these people were simply sitting and watching. So-called ideal. Krishna doesn't approve that so-called idealism approach, where you just sit in, because the Pandavas' feeling was that their father only, means father's elder brother, Dhritarashtra, he's sitting there, he has to take decision. How can we take decision? Hum chote hai ghar mein, we can't take decision in front of him. He's permitting this. How can we go against our elders? In that ideals they were caught. That's another example of being trapped too much by your ideal ethic, where you don't do what's practical. So yeah, so that's what. So that stand is really not supported by Krishna himself. That why you did that. So it's not. But still, that's an example of someone who doesn't quit. That means they still fought back. What I'm saying is, they didn't commit suicide at the end of the whole thing, which perhaps they could have, considering what happened. Yeah.
Actually, choosing not to fight at that very moment was very practical because they had lost everything. So they had to first, build their power, their army, and then come and fight back. So
that's right. But see, many times what happens, after every event has happened, it's sometimes easy to say what you should have done that time. But then at the spur of the moment, you really don't, you're caught. You're caught in certain words and certain things that you just don't know what to do, like that. Yeah. Yeah, see, but that's what, you have to understand the ethics they stand for. Though Yudhishthir knew very well that the Shakuni is cheating in the match, but still they were stuck. They were like, I have to listen, I have come here, I have put my word that I have put myself, I have pledged myself and I have lost myself. So I've lost. If I've lost myself, I can't raise my hand. I'm a slave of this man. So they were just stuck in those ideals, at that point at least. But the point is they nevertheless suffered a lot because of sticking to that ideal at that time. But still they never quit. That's what I'm saying. They never quit even in such a tough situation. Okay, then another thing, the view of the world. Is the view linear or cyclic? So please remember, there are these two views that the Mahabharata talks of. All I'm talking in the last slide is about view of the world. Linear or cyclic. Linear view means, you understand what is a linear view? In linear view, it is about making decisions as to what should I do right now, where you don't know what the past is, what the future is. It's just linear. So you say that, okay. So in a linear view, you always make your decisions very consciously in terms of trying to do the best thing possible. Cyclic view is a reflective view. This comes from the theory of karma. That something, I am in this circumstance. If you remember, I had told you, karma means circumstance. Remember that when I told you, karma means circumstance. So if I am in a very troublesome circumstance accidentally, I have to go to the cyclic view and understand that because of my past, the cycle has come on me and that's why I am in the troublesome circumstance. Dhritarashtra, what he does, he's an epitome of always presenting the wrong perspective. So when he's supposed to take a linear perspective, he takes a cyclic perspective. So when Dhritarashtra is being told by Vidur, his minister, come on, give the kingdom back to the Pandavas. Stop this gambling match. He says, what can I do? Whatever has to happen will happen. Everything is karma only which is coming. So that means when a linear perspective has to be taken, he takes a cyclic perspective. And when a cyclic perspective has to be taken, when his sons are dead, everything is over, he's saying that these people have only done this. He says that, I will kill Bhima right now. That time he tries to spring into action. So it's a case completely wrong understanding of linear and cyclic perspective. That means when you have to take decisions, don't think, that means do the best thing possible instead of thinking about whatever will happen, will happen. There is nothing like that. And when something has already happened, at that time, try to understand that this is because of the past rather than at that time trying to blame imaginary people for your suffering. So the Mahabharata speaks of the importance of both perspectives, linear and cyclic. So that's the dilemma here. Then the third one is ethics of legacy of responsibility, which I will just skip for a minute. Maybe I'll come back later. This is again very interesting, which I wanted to speak of, the ethics of journalism, a view of the world. What you see over here is a photograph from the Ramayana serial where Surpanaka reports Ravan. So I'll just explain what this is. So in the Ramayana story, what happens when Surpanaka, the sister of Ravan, when she loses her nose to Lakshman cutting her nose when she tries to attack Sita, she goes to her brother Ravan. But she goes to her brother and reports something totally different. The story is actually Surpanaka, when she comes to Ram and Lakshman, she comes to marry. She wants to marry one of them. So she first tells Ram that, hey, you look very handsome, I look very beautiful, why don't we just get married or just live in or whatever, something. Because please remember, Surpanaka is already married in the story. So it was not a case of... So I'm not sure whether she really wanted marriage or she just wanted to live in and have some fun. So Surpanaka, because the story says that she was already married and she was estranged from her husband at that point. So she comes to Ram and says that I want to be with you. Ram says that, see, I have one wife already, I'm happy with her. So thanks a lot. My brother, of course, he's a bachelor, at least in the forest. Maybe try with him. So she feels, even that guy is smart enough, no issues. She goes to him. He says that, you see, I have come here as a servant of my brother and my bhabhi. So if you become my wife, you will also have to be servant only, servant and Mrs. Servant. So might as well, why settle for something second? Go for the first grade, go back to him. So she again goes back to Ram. Ram says, see, it's difficult. So then she understands these two people are playing with me. So then she understands that Sita is the cause of all my mess. So she goes to kill her. When that time Ram says, hey, enough playing with her, just cut her nose and ear and, drive her away from here. So because Surpanaka goes to attack Sita, Lakshman comes with his knife and chops her nose and ear and sends her off. Don't touch her, get out. Now Surpanaka has a problem. So she goes to Ravan. But she reports something different. She reports to Ravan saying, I went there to get Sita for you because she's the most beautiful lady I've ever seen and she should be your possession. But this Ram and Lakshman were not allowing me to do that job. So there was one perspective, but you present a different perspective. So this is where we are talking about ethics of journalism. Journalism, one challenge with journalists is to report story factually. And most of the time, due to shortage of time, I will not be able to give many examples here. But in several cases, you will observe that journalists observe something, but they report something else only. For their own benefits, you understand? For their own commercial benefits or something. So that's ethics of journalism going wrong. It's a journalism, where you report, you see something, but you're totally different. This is another view of the world in general. The question is, are we happy with our parents, or we feel or wish that I had another parent instead of my parent? Okay, so this question especially comes when we are thinking about the nation itself, are we happy with the motherland, or we think we need another motherland? We need another land where we have to actually, change ourselves in terms of an affiliation. Okay, so one thing especially about Indians, I mean, this is my general observation. I'm not, it may be my personal, I'm not sure if I'm right or wrong. But in most cultures in the world, I have seen that, people are very comfortable with expressing their own country's language, their food habits, their beliefs, everything. Whereas Indians, they generally have, perhaps because of 1,000 years being ruled by the Mughals and British, we sometimes tend to have a very defeatist approach, where we feel very sorry to, showcase ourselves, with our own, Indian name or, Indian, you understood, Indian food habits and everything. We generally tend to think that anything American, European only is very good, or, you understand what I'm saying in general? So if you observe, it is actually there where, like for example, in India has its own set of systems which are sometimes very scientific also. Like to give you a simple example of food, the Indian habit of eating food with the fingers, is actually in many ways more medically helpful than eating with a spoon. The reason basically being, when you touch the food with your fingers itself, there is a sensation that allows you to understand the food that you're eating and you take it in. But generally, in any place you go, if you're an Indian, and but if you're surrounded by Europeans who are obviously eating with spoon and fork because that's their culture and their thing, an Indian generally feels extremely uncomfortable eating with his fingers. He feels that I should adopt that method only, because what will they think about me? I'm eating with my hand, so low grade. So sometimes it happens that we may not even understand, or even dressing and in every context. So that defeatist mentality sometimes comes in to Indians. And generally many people say it is because of 1,000 years of foreign rule. You have lost your self-confidence completely. So that's another ethic in the sense, be with our parents in that context. And the last one is, of course, are we suffering an illusion of self-worth? This is the last point that I'm saying here. As in, here I have the example of Duryodhan, who in the Mahabharata, when Yudhishthir constructs a palace, he goes there and he burns with envy, seeing that this guy has made such a great palace. Oh God, this is so terrible. He should suffer. That means many times our suffering is an illusion. That means we are not happy with ourselves. You just look at another fellow and suffer. That this fellow has got so much, so I have to suffer. So that's another personal view of the world which a person takes, because of which he suffers a lot. So there are some points which I wanted to say about how we view the world. Okay, and just the absolute last, we go to actually many things in Chanakya. I wanted to cover that as well, but there's absolute lack of time. But Chanakya Niti is extremely popular in India, if you know something about it. In fact, even today in New Delhi, the place where all the mantris live is called as Chanakyapuri, because this Chanakya was a person with great high level of ethics. There are many stories in his life about it, but again, I don't have time at least today to cover any of them. But I'll just end with one quote of Chanakya, which is highly challenging the modern way where people live it, because that was the ethic which, and this verse is considered one of the key verses in Chanakya's writings. And this is, I don't know, it's a photograph, it's not a photo, so it's a painting of Chanakya. So the very famous saying of Chanakya, where he speaks about who is Pandit. Pandit means a learned man. So it goes like this. It's a Sanskrit verse. Matravat paradareshu paradravyeshu loshtravat atmavat sarva bhuteshu yappashyati sampandita. So he places 3 parameters to say who is learned. The first one he says is matravat paradareshu. That means a person who can see another's wife as his mother. He puts that as the first one. Who can have such a vision? Paradravyeshu loshtravat. Another's money as dirt. Another's money as dirt. Paradravya. Dravya means wealth. Loshtravat. Loshtravat means like stone actually. Loshtravat literally means stone, but dirt. Atmavat sarva bhuteshu. Atmavat sarva bhuteshu means treat other people the way you wish to be treated yourself. That means how you wish yourself to be treated in a situation, treat the opposite person exactly like that. He says if somebody has these 3 parameters, he is actually learned. So this was the civilization and the culture that Chanakya comes from. what he actually stands for and he expressed in this say. Okay, so thank you, and maybe just we'll take a last one or two questions in case if there are any, and then end the day. Is there any question or comment? Or perhaps it's a very long day, it's already 4 o'clock and you're kind of wondering when to go and when this ethic lecture will stop. You know, I'm sorry for boring you, but my duty to do that. Any question or comment? No? Okay, thank you. So we continue next time, we meet. So